saying that meat is bad, but yet you can get everything you need from meat. And if you're on a plant-based diet, you need supplement. So why would a diet where you need to supplement be better than a diet where you don't need to supplement? I mean, I don't know. I mean, just from a logical point of view, I'm not a doctor myself, but that just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Well, you're not a doctor, but you have a brain. And so you can think and see what's in front of you, and you don't need to be a doctor to have common sense. And, in fact, a lot of doctors are probably lacking in that regard. So, common sense, unfortunately, is not all that common anymore. They used to say, like, wisdom from the mouth of babes. What does that mean? That just means, a kid that's just looking at the world fresh and going like, that doesn't make sense. What the hell are you talking about? And that's what we need to get back to, because we've been taught how to think and what to think, or sorry, they were taught what to think as opposed to how to think, and they've pigeonholed our brains to just do what we're told. So we don't actually know how to think critically and look at something and go, wait, hold on a second, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't pass the smell test. Because you're right. If a diet is lacking in nutrients, if you have to supplement, then by definition your diet is deficient, right? That's a definition in terms. Well, it could be soil, whatever. It's deficient. You're not getting the nutrients that you require. Now you may have a malabsorption issue, but if your diet just on its face cannot provide certain nutrients like B12 or D3 or K2 or DHA or EPA or retinol, or the list goes on, then that is a deficient diet. That is not an appropriate diet. And obviously it's not our evolved diet, because we would die, right? And meat has absolutely everything we need in the proportion that we need it. How do we know that? Because there are people that eat meat exclusively and nothing else, generation after generation after generation, in societies alive right now that have absolutely no issues. And if you're deficient by 1% in only one nutrient, you cannot do that. You cannot live generation after generation after generation. You will die out. And so obviously that's not the case. I actually find that it's better that doctors aren't taught nutrition, because we'd be taught the wrong nutrition, right? We're taught a whole bunch of plant-based nonsense and just reinforce this. It would be exactly the same. I mean, it's not like it's any different. It's not like nutritionists are coming out going like, "Oh my God, no, we should all be carnivores." They're all saying we should be vegan, because that's what they're getting taught, right? And so you have a nutritionist who's promoting a diet that is lacking in basic essential nutrients. It's in the name, nutritionist, nutrients. You need nutrients, right? And yet these different nutritional bodies are pushing plant-based vegan diets. But why are they doing that? Because they're heavily funded by the plant-based processed food industry, like Kellogg's, like Sanitarium, like Nestle, like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's who pays these people, and that's who pulls their strings. And that's why you'll see them pushing a plant-based diet, because these processed food companies make massive, massive profits off of their plant-based products. So ready-made meals, all these other sorts of things, but just junk food too, potato chips, etc. And they know that statistically, when people go vegan, they don't all go to like fresh quinoa salads and sprouted alfalfa. No, they eat junk food. They eat potato chips and Oreo cookies, which are vegan, by the way. And so, it's just marketing and propaganda. They're trying to push their product. They're trying to sell more of this garbage. It is a drug. They've used multiple drugs that are known to be addictive. That are known drugs, like sugar. Sugar is a known drug. It's a known addictive drug, addictive substance. They put in caffeine, a known drug, an addictive substance, and it's to compel you to continue to eat their product. They have food scientists who are very clever people. When Philip Morris and the other tobacco companies started tanking in the 80s, because the bag came out that they've been lying for decades about how dangerous tobacco was. They were the largest companies on earth. They were the largest, most wealthy companies on earth. So I said, okay, well, we need to diversify now. That's what they did, is they went into the processed food industry and they bought up Kraft and a bunch of other big companies. And they became the largest processed food manufacturer on earth. and they moved these thousands of scientists from the tobacco industry over to the food industry. And they were in the tobacco industry trying to make it more and more addictive and compulsive, and so that people just smoked and smoked and smoked and smoked and smoked, so that they sold more product, because that's all they cared about. They cared about selling that, $3.50 pack of cigarettes, and they wanted you just to buy more and more and more of those things. And now it's like $20 a pack because of the taxes. But they don't care that people are suffering and dying as a result of it. In fact, they knew that was happening, which is why I don't think they should have gotten a civil slap on the wrist. I mean, it's $400 billion, but who cares? They made trillions over the years, and they killed hundreds of millions of people prematurely and caused disease, and probably a few billion who were smokers at the time. And they knew it. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, the Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. They knew this was causing disease. They knew this was causing harm, emphysema and cancer, etc., peripheral vascular disease and heart disease. They knew it. Their own documents, their own memos that were leaked out to Congress, the U.S. Congress, that they said that specifically. They knew all this was happening, which is why they got that $400 billion fine. And why didn't they face criminal charges? They knowingly killed people. They knowingly caused massive burdens of disease and illness on a global scale. I mean, this is mass genocide at this point. These are crimes against humanity. We should have had another Nuremberg trial and actually strung these guys up and executed them with a firing squad. Seriously, these guys should have faced harsh criminal penalties because of this, or at least a trial. It should have at least been manifested criminal charges because of this. And now we're getting the same thing. So these guys took all their scientists and making tobacco more and more addictive and breeding up more and more nicotine in the tobacco and all these other sorts of things, and all these different processes to make it faster and more efficient and more profitable and ended up being more harmful. So they took all those guys, those very clever people, put these guys into food sciences, and to then do that, to try to make food as addictive as possible, and try to put these different substances that trigger something called the bliss point that makes your brain just go, ooh, eat this, more of that now, please. And you eat that because your brain thinks you're getting something really good for you, goes into your stomach. You actually have receptors in your stomach that track the macro and micronutrients that are in your stomach, and that sends a signal up to the brain via the vagus nerve. And your brain actually sees how many nutrients you have there. So you get this, ooh, that tastes really good, that's good for you taste, but then it goes in your stomach, and your stomach goes, there's nothing here. Like your body tracks nutrients. It does not track calories. And so it's not seeing any nutrients, and it's getting these bliss point hits, and have these chemicals actually disrupt our normal satiety signals. So we overeat, and we keep eating, and we use more of their product and buy more of their product, and they sell more, and that's better for their bottom line. And that's all there is to it. They just want to sell more. They want to sell more potato chips. They have these, they don't even hide it in their advertising. It's like Pringles, bet you can't eat just one. He's like, I bet you think that because you've designed it like that, and so it's those are the people funding the nutrition courses and the nutritional colleges. And there was they've come after a number of doctors, such as Dr. Gary Fettke here in Australia. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He was putting people on ketogenic diets to reverse their diabetes, and it was reversing their diabetes. And now it's in the national guidelines in Australia to treat diabetes. It's considered best practice to put diabetics on a ketogenic diet. He was doing this well ahead of his time, and he was reversing diabetes and making it so these people didn't need amputations anymore, because he was an orthopedic surgeon and he had to do these foot and leg amputations, and he said it was just horrible. It was a terrible, just hearing a human foot fall into a trash can after you've cut it off. It's just a terrible sound that you just can't get out of your head. And he's like, okay, don't want to do that anymore. And so he's getting these people to change their diet, and it was actually completely turning them around and saving these people's life and their health. And they came after him. In fact, a medical group here in Australia actually sued for the minutes of a certain cereal company and got the minutes. And they actually saw in there that they said, this damn ketogenic diet movement is killing our cereal sales. We need to shut it up. We need to, sort of, show that it's, try to disqualify it, all those sort of things. And so they named specific doctors around the world who were pushing this and say, we need to discredit these people. We need to get their licenses taken away and say that these are just a phony and a fraud and a quack so that we can go on with this, right? And they named Gary Fettke by name. And it's not like he had a massive, social media presence. He had 4,000 people that followed him on Instagram. It was, I don't know how he got on their radar, but they tapped the Australian Dietetics Associations, who they're the major funders of. And the head of the Australian Dietetics Association, the head of the Australian Dietetics Association then called the head of Gary Fettke's hospital and said, you need to shut this guy up and shut him down. And so they started trying to work against him to get his medical license pulled, right? And so that's who these people are. So thank God that those guys don't have a say in what gets taught in medical school, because it would just be reinforcing that same whole garbage, and it would just be even more entrenched in people's minds as they come out of medical school. So, at least there's not that.
Yeah, and you tell someone that and they'll call you a conspiracy theorist.
It's all in the literature. This is all published data,
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
there. Yeah.
It's that people just are so blind to it. And just, propaganda is a powerful thing.
Well, all you have to do is look at the main donors for the Australian Dietetics Association and the American Dietetics Association, and different European groups, and every country. Who funds these people? It's the same. It's the usual suspects. It's Nestle. It's Coke. It's Pepsi. It's Pfizer. It's Moderna. It's all these other places. It's all the food and drug companies, and Bayer. Monsanto, all these sorts of things. They are the ones who are the major funders of these things. They're the major funders for medical conferences. When you go to a mainstream medical conference, you will see who the donors are. It is the big food and drug companies, all the processed garbage food companies, and all of the major pharmaceutical companies. That's who funds these places. And of course, because their money talks, they have a say in who gets to present papers and literature and publications at those conferences. And, it's not really going to deviate too far from the mainstream.
Oh, honey, that's an animal product, right? Well, it's actually, bee vomit, and they're just vomiting up concentrated nectar, okay, which comes from a plant. So if you want to get technical, it goes back, and, it's not exactly an animal. But it's also sugar, okay? So there's more fructose